very good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. The delightful Delucia Daniels. Gosh, it's been a long time, Delucia. You look as radiant as ever.
I was going to say, you haven't aged a bit since the last time I saw you, Sash, and I feel like we've just been waiting very patiently for Formula One to find a kickoff, because if you look at the season so far, let's be honest, it's been tantalizing. It's been exactly what we wanted. And I think that with how things are tightening up, we've got 4 or 5 drivers who can still win the title.
Yeah, the wonderful thing is it is open cards. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago or before a couple of races ago, and I said, watch out for engine penalties. We've seen it already starting to happen. Mercedes have said they're probably going to get caught out by it. Ferrari, we're not too sure at this stage. Red Bull, also not too stage. But I think all of the teams, somewhere along the line, are going to have to take a penalty. It's a question of where do you take that penalty with the tracks and races that are left for this season. But let's talk a little bit about some crazy stuff that is happening. And in my opinion, I think James Vowles must be a little bit concerned at the moment because Williams have not performed. And we know that Cadillac has not performed. Loudon got let go. Marcin Budkowski is in. A name that you might not be familiar with. But this man has an incredible Formula One record.
He does, and a lot of people are asking, was it a bit harsh of Cadillac to let go of their past team principal so soon, only halfway through the season? But I think the answer is pretty simple. I don't think it is, because we know Formula One is a cutthroat sport. Cadillac has not been performing. In the last 3-4 races, we saw how many times their car lit up, and not in a good way, in a very bad way, where we didn't even get to see them racing on track. And we said it before, where between them and the Aston Martin, I don't know which one has been more of a safety hazard on track, because they're being lapped not once, but sometimes twice. So in order to change an organization, you start with the big guns. You start with your team principal. How can they change the momentum of where they currently are? And I think with where Cadillac is sitting, and it's not in a pretty position, we kind of have to look at it and say, maybe this is what they need for the second half of the season, just to gain momentum and be in the races with the Audis, for example, with the Haas, at least further up, and not just struggling to get off the start line. So I think with them bringing in a new team principal, it does make sense. How it's going to turn around for them, I'm not too sure, but they've got to change something. And they've started at the right place. Maybe, we can't always blame the drivers for everything. We've seen Sergio Perez do well in the last couple of races, so you have to also give him credit for dealing with the issues that he's had in the car that he has. But yeah, new change, maybe new Cadillac. They've changed some things, but we're just going to have to wait and see this weekend to see how they fare against the others.
Yeah, I think I must agree with you. I think it's inexcusable for the ailments or problems that we've seen at Cadillac that are recurring problems week by week, session by session. And Formula One is cutthroat. We know it from a driver's perspective. We know it from team principal's perspective. It's how the beast rolls. Marcin Budkowski comes with an incredible resume. He has been out of the sport for about 2 or 3 years. I think his last tenure was around about 2023. But he's worked for the likes of Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, Prost, and now he goes to Cadillac. So this man has got a great resume. It's a question of what does the sort of organogram look underneath him, and how quickly can he actually turn things around. But it is going to take a little bit of time, but I think it is the right step that Cadillac have made. And that's why I think people like James Vowles, I think our Haas boss as well, must be looking very, very carefully at what they are doing, because as much as I love James Vowles, he has unfortunately disappointed. There was so much expectation of Williams, and they are just nowhere. They really are completely nowhere, which is very, very troubling. So I think someone like those two bosses, Haas and Williams, must be sitting and saying they need a massive upgrade coming from this weekend onwards in Zandvoort.
I think especially for Williams, you're sitting at 11 points, third from the bottom of the standings going into the second half of the season. In comparison to where they were last year, where we were seeing them battling for podiums, it's disheartening.
Yeah.
And there is still a lot of questions that I think James Vowles and his team don't have the answers for. You look at Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, who's been incredibly frustrated throughout the first half of the season, and in all of their interviews, there's very little optimism. It's kind of like listening to Fernando Alonso complain about the regulations. You know, it's you're a record stuck on repeat, and essentially there's nothing you can do as a driver when your equipment just is not working. They still have not really alleviated the heaviness of that Williams as much as the other cars. So already you at an offset. And I think even with them coming into the season, I don't have a lot of hope for them, because you also see a team like Alpine, who surprised us this season, who've been doing remarkably well. And you also see the likes of a Racing Bull team, whose consistency has really carried them into securing that fifth place in the Constructors' title so far. So when you look at where the other teams are, it's very, very unlikely at this point that Williams, unless something miraculous happens, can turn things around heading into especially this race in Zandvoort, because I don't even think that this track suits their style at all.
Now, the driver market, before we talk about Zandvoort this weekend, I mean, which drivers are in a slightly precarious position? People who aren't too happy. Carlos Sainz is not happy at Williams, but where can he go? Esteban Ocon is a driver that at the moment I'm a little bit concerned about his future in Formula One. I don't know what's going on there. Ollie Bierman, I think he's secure with Haas, but they've got to give him a better car. So Ocon is one person that I'm a little bit concerned with. Fernando Alonso, I think he can decide whether or not he wants to stay or doesn't want to stay. I think the next couple of races are going to determine what he's going to decide for his future. But we've got Tosloff in Formula 2. We've got Carrera in Formula 2, both looking for seats. One of them is a Ferrari junior driver, so probably looking at Esteban Ocon's seat maybe at Haas. So that's one to watch out for. But let's talk about Carlos Sainz, DeLucia. He's stuck at Williams. He should have gone to Audi. Does Audi now go and pay out and get rid of someone like Hülkenberg and pay him out a fortune of money, and then have to pay a fortune of money to get someone like Carlos Sainz, when you look at the VW group worldwide struggling the way that it is?
It's such a complex answer, because you and I can sit here and be like, yeah, he should just go and Audi should do that because he is a stronger driver on paper than Nico Hülkenberg. He's proven that in results and in leaving every team that he's been with in a much better state than what he found them in. So he's got a great track record of that. However, it's very difficult because Carlos Sainz is also nearing 30, if he's not already 30. But I can't have the same argument for Nico Hülkenberg because he's almost 40. So I think that if you're going to risk it, kind of like what McLaren did when they had to pay out Daniel Ricciardo, millions of pounds they paid out Daniel Ricciardo. And to be honest with you, they did end up getting a fantastic driver in return in Oscar Piastri. It was worth the risk for them to do that. Do I think it's worth the risk to do that with Carlos Sainz? Yes, because I think that he will be able to give the team a better output with Audi. I do think that him and Bortoleto would also be a great team combination. I would love to see them race together on one team. I think that he also has the IQ of a racer, not only on the track, but off the track to enhance the team. But at the same time, it is a risky move because I do know that Audi does prefer a German driver in their team. They're a German brand, and it does make it a bit more complex in that scenario. But also, would Carlos Sainz want to go to Audi right now? Because they're also not performing as well as would have been expected. Carlos Sainz is not someone who would want to sit in the back and, just bide his time, because time is not on his side at the moment. I think he would want to go to a top-tier team, but then who does that leave you with? Is he going to go back to Red Bull? Probably not, because if Max Verstappen leaves, Oscar Piastri steps into that. Then who goes to McLaren? There's so many moving parts here. If Lewis Hamilton leaves, Ollie Behrman goes in. It's an interesting space because out of all 22 drivers, only 8 have been secured for next year. So there are so many different moving parts. And notice, Sash, there hasn't actually been any big rumors throughout this entire summer break period. The only rumor I saw was Max Verstappen with Toto Wolff. And, that was the same last year, and nothing came to fruition with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you're right. I mean, during the summer break, we usually find great, rumor mill. But maybe also those scribes have learned that, you know what, we're not as gullible as we were last year or the year before, and we don't just get the clickbait, and we don't just read some nonsense because you need to fill up some lines. But the interesting one is, what does a guy like Carlos Sainz do? I mean, is he going to now end the rest of his career with a Williams that doesn't seem to be getting any better, or if Williams found something that's going to impress them for 2027? I'm not entirely sure. Audi is an interesting animal at the moment. As far as I know, the deal with Hülkenberg is a 3-year deal, so they would have to pay him a fortune of money to release him from that contract to bring someone like Carlos Sainz in. But also, what is the trajectory for Audi going forward? And will they all of a sudden, if FIA decide that we're going back to normally aspirated engines and limited hybrid technology, would all of a sudden Audi now withdraw because it doesn't suit them? Yet, on the road car front, they are going back to petrol style or internal combustion engines as well. So the whole world of motoring and motorsport is in a tremendous conundrum at the moment as to where it's actually going to settle itself. But this weekend, it is the swan song at Zandvoort, which is very, very sad because it's a magnificent track. It's always completely full. And the only reason we are losing this race is because neither the Dutch federal government or the regional governments put any money into this. So it's entirely up to the promoter. And even with full capacity stands, they're running at about a 5 or 6 million euro loss. And they just cannot sustain it, which is desperately unfortunate. Now, I've been to Zandvoort. Okay, and let me tell you, Zandvoort is the size of a pea. So, unfortunately, it's not as though they can all of a sudden, as a little town, finance this. So it's very, very sad, but it's going to be an unbelievable final Grand Prix, and the Orange Brigade are going to be out there in force. It's going to be something spectacular.
It really is, and Max Verstappen revealed his final helmet for his final home race, and it's such a beautiful ode to the lion that he is. I love the helmet. It's white and blue with little touches of orange in between. And I think with the way things are faring up in the championship, Zandvoort's going to be very interesting, because this is also where we saw things take a turn last season, where Lando Norris ended up winning the Dutch Grand Prix and then had a string of Grand Prix wins after that, and when all of a sudden Max Verstappen came into the mix thereafter. So I think Zandvoort's going to be pretty interesting. Last race out, Lando Norris was the winner in Hungary, and Sash, within the last 5 races, we've had 5 different race winners. Within the 11 races we've had so far, we've had 11 different podiums. There's been no repeat podium the entire season. And I don't doubt that this weekend's going to be exactly that. I would love to see Max Verstappen take a win. I think the Red Bull has really been on a great trajectory. I would love to see him go out with a bang at his home Grand Prix. But at the same time, I am looking at how McLaren has all of a sudden found some sort of magic power in their power unit and their engine. And yes, you mentioned earlier about the fact that, we are going to see engine penalties. Lando Norris already took one, but he's managed to recover those points and that deficit through winning the last Grand Prix. So we've got so much to look forward to. Can George Russell, now that he's an engaged man to Carmen, can he become the car man that he needs to be? We've got so many questions that is so exciting that we don't have the answers for. But I think Zandvoort is really going to be a true test of who can withstand the mental capacity of being a big Formula One driver.
And the massive question here is, can Red Bull, has Red Bull over the summer break managed to find something that they can develop on that car? Because as both Hadjar and Verstappen have said, that car is at its end of development. So if they don't come with some extreme updates this coming weekend, they're going to be really, really stuck for the remainder of the season. But I think most of the teams are going to come with upgrades this weekend. I'm really looking forward to see what Aston Martin brings. We saw them massive improvement in the last Grand Prix. They're saying they're going to be coming with another 30 or 40 horsepower this weekend in Zandvoort. We've got a sprint race as well, the final one of the season. We've got Mercedes that probably, still in my opinion, still probably the fastest car out there. But I agree with you 100%. The danger team here is McLaren. Ferrari, we know, have been incredibly consistent, but they haven't found that pace that we have all been expecting from all of these upgrades that they've brought. They're consistent, but they're still lacking a little bit of pace. Whereas McLaren, last Grand Prix, wow, they were just rocket ship. So they are definitely the danger team to watch out. And then, yes, it's his home Grand Prix, and it's Max Verstappen. So you just can't count him out with anything. But I do hope that Red Bull have done something and have a much improved car for both Hadjar and for Verstappen.